Greetings everyone, and welcome to a truly special online event today. It's called What the Dying Know. Discover the 7 core truths that emerge at life's end when everything becomes clear. My name is Stephen Dyna. I'm the founder and CEO of the Shift Network. And one of the things that we have really been deeply investigating in recent years is the portal of death. It's such a place that constellates fear and anxiety, but if we approach it in the right way, it really is a portal into the deepest levels of wisdom for our life and to release ourselves and our loved ones from from the fear that often and resistance that constellate around death is such a blessing. So we're going to get to explore some of this liminal space with Suzanne B. O'Brien today. She's a registered nurse. She's a founder of the Doula Givers Institute and Universal Life Mastery Training. And if you like what you hear today, we have a brand new course with Suzanne called Life-Changing Insights from the Dying Experience that we'll share more about towards the end of the hour. So with that said, Suzanne, welcome.
Thank you so much for having me. I'm so excited to be talking about this.
Yeah, well, let's dive in. And first of all, I mean, just that you're excited to talk about the dying process, and is I think in itself is represents a big paradigm shift and a real opportunity for all of us. So maybe share a little bit about what propelled you in this direction, what really compelled you to make a real focus of your life in this area.
Thank you. I'm excited about it. You're right, because my life completely changed the minute I started working with those at the end of theirs. And I want it like literally overnight. And I want to share why is because when you're able to be in the space of people who are crossing the veil, there is a wisdom, there is an energy that to me, and I think many other people will agree, holds all of the tools and teachings about how to live this life, what it really means. And so it changed my perspective overnight. But what I was seeing and what they were saying was things that completely helped me to have a different perspective, different healing, understanding the different experiences that I went through in life. And that changed how I lived every single day, which completely changed the entire journey.
Mm. So often people talk about it's like just whatever's not important drops away. And so maybe share just about what was it that for you and sort of like getting familiar or getting comfortable with the dying process that really got you to the most essential parts of your existence?
Well, it's really interesting that we share this because and I know that God universe makes no accidents, right? And so I am a registered nurse by trade. And when I was working in the mainstream hospital, we have a lot of elderly and people would die in the hospital. It was just such a not compassionate, supportive setting in general for patients. We have a fragmented healthcare system. It's very rushed. There's not a lot of time with patients. And I felt very disconnected to being a nurse and that calling. I knew I wasn't going to get the fulfillment. And I heard a little voice that said, go to hospice. And it was so interesting because in that moment, I first thought, why am I hearing this? I have no end of life experience, but there was something that was so aligned and connected feeling. And I said, I'm just going to follow this. I don't know what it is. It makes no sense, but I'm going to follow going to hospice and see what this is. And the very first day I went out to see hospice patients, I knew I was in the exact place in my life I was supposed to be in. It was like a piece of puzzle fitting. And I went home that day and I said to myself, that's how life works. It's not what do I think I'm supposed to be doing? It's what do I know? Where am I being guided? And that led me to work with people at the end of life. And it's interesting, Stephen, because I had no end of life experience in this lifetime that I knew, but there was something very familiar and comfortable in that setting. Like I had been there many, many times before. And it was in that space of end of life. And I've been honored and blessed to be with over 1,000 people at the end of life at this point, that I started recognizing that people were saying the same thing. So, if I may, we're holistic beings, physical, mental, emotional, and spiritual, all of us right now. But at the end of life, as people's physical bodies were diminishing, their spiritual body was growing. And they seem to at one point have one foot in this world, one foot in the next, and they started saying the same things. I call it they get their spiritual wisdom, their spiritual eyes. And I started paying attention from all different backgrounds and religions. They started to say the same things of wisdom, what the life's journey was about. And I started taking notes right away. And it completely is life teaching, life mastery teaching. Mm.
I'm looking forward to diving into what you've synthesized from those thousand plus times of making this journey with people. So, but before we get to what they're actually saying, what have you found are some of the most important kind of mindset shifts that are required to be with somebody in the dying process? So that like letting go of some of the cultural baggage or preconceptions or inheritance that we have to be fully present.
Yeah. And I think you just said it. The word is presence. And our presence is the most powerful medicine we have to give at the end of life and in life. I will share that. And at the end of life, when patients will say and people will say that there's no judgment, so they start to get clarity about what the life's journey was about, labels and things that we put on from the human part of us, just like you said, just thinking that I know how somebody is with their culture and religion, or I have judgments or preconceived notions about different things. We have to really remember that we're human beings, and the human part is one part and the being part is another. And so at that end of life space, as people seemingly drop the human suit, the ego suit, the analytical mind, and they become their soul self, that life force, there is no judgment. There are no labels. And if we can start embodying that understanding, meeting each other with presence, non-judgmental presence, and especially showing up for people at the end of life. By the way, I feel that all of us will be called to show up for people we love at the end of life, and knowing how to do that changes everything.
That makes a lot of sense. So it's the dropping away of judgment. So there's a certain amount of just releasing any expectations and or judgments about which direction things go. I imagine that one of those probably is difficult for people is the wanting somebody to cling to life or to stay here or to fight death or that's something that I think our culture sort of entrains in us that we're supposed to fight to the last breath or something like that. Maybe what's your perspective on that?
Yeah, and it's very interesting because, spoiler alert, we've been dying for thousands of years. So I just kind of want to back up here because I've had to go down this pathway myself to understand how we got to a place where we're so dysfunctional with something that's 100% guaranteed and natural. And it's really only the last about 120 years that we've removed the awareness of end of life. We have taught doctors to fix it. So in the last 100 years, life expectancy has almost doubled. And in one sense, medical advances are a wonderful thing in one sense. And I'm being very, very graceful when I'm sharing this, because we have to also remember that keeping people alive and living are two very different things. And when we teach doctors, which we do right now, how to keep people alive, and that if their patient dies, they've failed, what kind of message is that not only sending them, but the verbiage we use in medicine, I'm sorry, there's no more I can do for you, or he lost his battle with cancer. If it's a battle, we know eventually, no matter how much we tweak and do things, that there's going to be one winner to that.
Mhm.
And that space that we start to prolong life and do it can be a very dangerous, painful space that we have to be very mindful of.
Mm. I was struck by when you say there's nothing further I can do for you. Is that like that whole shift away from doing to presence seems like it's a really important piece. Maybe share a little bit more about like how the tendency. It seems like the tendency is to what, oh, I want to do something or define our our help by our doing with somebody dying, but that's not necessarily the case, is it?
It's not. And I love that you said that because this is so important. I'll get so many emails and messages, my loved one is dying. What do I do? What do I do? And so, from a practical standpoint, there is understanding the body's way that it physically shuts down and what we can do, interventions for comfort, or simply knowing that what we're seeing is a natural part of the process, not to be afraid. But many times I'll say to people, it's not what you need to do, it's what you need to be. And that embodies that presence, that non-judgment, that holding the space for somebody, and really being present in that experience, that I'm here with you, I'm guiding you. I'm just thinking of the same with the birth of a baby. This is the same. And think about how much we do for those babies coming in. And we're not at this moment doing nearly anything for people at the end of life. And that needs to change. How can it go well when someone's guaranteed to have an end of life at some point, and when we have no idea what to do to support them? How do we think that can go
Mm.
today? Yeah.
What is what are some of the positive benefits for the dying person of having somebody just being fully present like that? How does that actually help them?
It helps them because it allows them to be in a comfortable place to move through what they need to move through. And this is really important because at the end of life, it's almost as if everything bubbles up to the top, right? And it wants to have sense made out of it. It wants to be reconciled. And there's something that's beautifully helpful in that space, meaning that as the human part of us is diminishing, so that force that we are living most of us today, and we'll talk about it because this is what the course is really about, is with all the judgments, with all of the, the ego mind kind of having us go in circles and spiraling. At the end of life, when the spiritual part is growing, we start to look at our lives. We want to make sense. We want to know that we made a difference. And we also want to make sense of things that happened for that piece. And this is the last opportunity. And so when I'm here as a non-judgmental person holding that space for not only physical comfort and all that's there, but helping people to share what's on their heart. If they want to reach out to somebody, or if they just want to share, things that have happened in their lives that they want to talk about or make sense out of, when you have somebody that is non-judgmental and holding that energy of unconditional love around you, there's a opportunity, there's an invitation, there's a window there,
Hmm.
and we all have it. And again, I'd like us to embrace that part of our journey sooner if possible, and that's what the course will talk about, than waiting to that last minute.
Hmm. So let's talk about the seven core truths that we're going to cover today and really sort of what you see emerging. And you've got the 1,000+ people that you've been present with and all the others that you've taught and guided. And so what do you see as the sort of seven kind of core truths? Maybe we can illuminate each with a little bit more depth as we go. So we just kind of build this wider picture.
Yeah. So if I may, I feel like we were told the riddle at the very beginning, right? We're human beings. And it's so interesting when we kind of reflect back on that, because there's really two main parts of us. We're spiritual beings having a human experience. And at the end of life, that becomes so apparent. So patients at the end of life will say, Suzanne, I get it now. Like it will happen after a nap or maybe overnight. There's a point again that it seems that they're frequency, their vibration is shifting and it's going towards that being that non-physical self. And so that's opening up a whole different perspective of consciousness for them. And one of the things they say, which is absolutely incredibly beautiful and healing, not only for myself, but everyone involved, is when people will say, there is no death. And now they start understanding what this was all about. So the first thing is they share that there is no death. And when you can imagine it's somebody at the end of life who may have been fearful and having a lot of heaviness, when they come to that awareness. And again, I have a large pool to pick from. So it's not that everyone is always going to have a loved one say all these things, but this is the majority. And if we brought back this wisdom, this could change everything for our perspective. And so if there is no death, then to me, what is this life's journey about? So the first thing is they talk about there is no death. Then they talk about how we're all connected, that everyone is connected, not just people, but the planet, the elements, that it's all part of one unconditional loving energy, which is really beautiful. The third thing they say is that there's no judgment. And so there's no judgment. So everything we've gone through that, and we're very judgmental on ourselves. And also we're judgmental on each other, right? So we have this thing about these labels and everything is vibrational and energetic. So when I'm holding on to resentment or guilt or anger or shame, I'm holding on to that energetic frequency, which is preventing me from moving forward at a higher frequency. And there's no judgment here, but I think we all are looking for happiness, and we're looking for, why am I here? And what is this journey about? Then they talk about forgiveness, and the patients that I have seen at the end of life that have utilized the power of forgiveness have had the most transformational end of lives that I've ever seen. It's like a complete different shift in their light bodies. And so when they are talking about no judgment, and they're talking about that we're all connected, and they're talking about how everything happened for a reason, for them, not to them. Now, remember, there's a different energetic perspective that they're looking at. It's their higher self. But when they're able to look back on their lives, things that they've carried for 30, 40 years that have held anger or kept them in that place of being stuck, when they're able to look at it for what it was providing them, what was the invitation of learning, of growth, it completely changes the energy attached to it. And I immediately, when I saw people utilize the power of forgiveness and shift, I said, I want that. Whatever that is, how do we get there before we are at the end of life so that we can capitalize on that today?
I kind of want to just comment on something. What's clear when you're talking about that is that how closely related forgiveness is to the other pieces. Because it's like if you're still holding on a judgment, it's actually hard to get to forgiveness. So it's actually sort of almost a byproduct of the first ones as well.
It really is. And if there's one thing, and somebody said if there's one tool that you can offer, it's the tool of forgiveness, because I think all roads lead to forgiveness. So whether it's resentment, shame, regret, forgiveness is the transformational tool.
And so coming back to the whole presence and the loving support, is that by creating that loving, unconditional support, then you're actually helping come to conclusion or forgiveness with different pieces, it sounds like.
I think forgiveness is really the most important thing that we can talk about at the end of life and in life. Because yes, you're right. When people are in that space and share, forgiveness is what's going to be the key that unlocks that for them. And it's forgiveness of self and it's forgiveness of others. And I think we're living in a world today that we have to remember that we're individually going through experiences, but there's also a collective consciousness that we're attached to. And I think if we can bring forgiveness in on so many levels, that we do our own work, but we can also use forgiveness to forgive some of the things that are happening on a larger scale and look for the invitation in those as well. And then how do we show up to make a positive difference?
Great. Well, let's go back to, that was the fourth element or the fourth core truth. Uh,
Yep.
what do you
So
want?
here's the fifth, is that everything again was for learning. And I'm going to have us step out, and I want people to really just open your heart and your mind for a minute, because this may be a little bit of a hard one to digest, but people at the end of life will say that everything was happening for them and that they chose it. So stay with me for a minute. When they share that we come into this, if we're spiritual beings having this human experience, they say that we had a choice and a say of coming in and what that journey was going to look like in order to learn, in order to expand. And so when they talk about, I chose my family, I chose the challenges that I was going to go through in hopes that I was going to learn this lesson and expand on this level, when they share that, and if we invite that in, think about that. If I thought about the things that I've been through, and by the way, the most challenging experiences we have are usually our greatest spiritual teachers, right? We don't always see them at the moment. But when I think about that, and sometimes we can say, well, why don't I have the parents that are in the TV shows that I watched as a child? Meanwhile, I don't think that there's anything that's ever like that. But if I knew that I chose my challenges, how could I ever be angry and resentful and upset when I'm looking at it from a different perspective? So when everything happened for me, it's a shift in perspective of what that experience that I may have been carrying around for 20, 30 years. If I look at it from a different lens, what could that possibly give me as a different perspective and a gift so that I can change that energy with it and move forward at a higher level of consciousness?
Hmm. So you're kind of putting some caveats there around that one, especially because people might have some resistance. You share a little bit about what comes up for people in resisting that particular truth and how to work with that?
I will, and I absolutely understand it. There's no diminishing the pain that we go through in this experience. There's just no diminishing it. And it's not ever trying to make light of things that are really hard, because I absolutely understand it. But I also want to share with your listeners that every single person has a story. Every single person has been through really hard things and traumas, usually, and we know nothing about them. And so when we go back to that step of not having judgment, we're meeting people every single day that have a story that we know nothing about. So really trying to remember to not judge people. And this even applies to our own family, your own parents. You don't know everything about them. And so the resistance is this: when people will say, well, Suzanne, I would have never chose that. I absolutely understand what that feels like and how you can, but I'm also sharing with you the perspective of people that are crossing the veil, that from different religions, different backgrounds, have said the same exact thing. So if we could just possibly open our hearts and our minds to that possibility, what would that provide us? Looking at it from that lens of that, okay, I'm over here as a being. This is the human part, right? And I went through this very painful thing as the human, but if I'm looking at it from a higher perspective, oh, I can see now that yes, it was painful when I was in it, but this is what it was providing me. This is where it was elevating me, giving me the opportunity to elevate in my consciousness. Major health scares, or even health crisis, major losses. These are our greatest opportunities usually for acceleration in our conscious evolution, except for they're very painful at the same time. So when we can look at it like that, and again, I understand people who said, well, I would never choose that. You wouldn't in the human form. I totally understand you, but I'm just inviting us to possibly look at it from a higher perspective.
Mm. It's really important to illuminate that differential between the human perspective and the kind of soul perspective, and how we might choose things for a higher purpose that are unfathomable to us in a human form too.
Absolutely. And by the way, and we just want to make sure that we understand that it does not take away the suffering that we go through and the pain that we feel in the human experience, but we're trying to look from, again, a higher perspective of what is the invitation here.
Mm. Beautiful.
Mhm.
You want to move on to the sixth core truth?
So we're human beings, and that is really the framework. And again, this is so important because I often will think that in the experience, here I am as the human. And by the way, we have an individual mind, human mind, right? So individual human mind and being. We also have a collective that we're connected to, consciousness, which is the ego mind, and a collective being. So if I'm here and I'm allowing myself only to live my life through the human lens because I don't know any better, right? Because we've removed end of life. Think about it. The last 100 years, we've removed knowledge about end of life, the wisdom, the ritual around it. It was a communal event. It was a sacred rite of passage. We've removed, in my opinion, the greatest teacher about how to live. So when we don't have that, I'm living in the human part because that's what I know. Now, the human ego part is going to be based on all my input, my schooling, my experiences, my family, and it's also going to keep me separate, right? So the human part is fearful and it's separate, and it's you're not good enough and you can never be this and all of that. And so here's the human, here's the being, and at the end of life, as we see organically people become their being self because this is their life force, here's the gap in the human being experience for you and I that are privileged to have another day, to have the opportunity. So here's the gap. And how do we fill that gap? By understanding how I get in this beautiful journey that I'm in, accessing the being wisdom, the clarity, the pathway, the healing while I'm still in the journey. So there can be a flow and a joy to this journey, and also a higher guidance that's allowing me to see my path rather than spiraling in this circle of disconnection and anxiety and fear and all of the things over here. So human being, if we first understand that, and then we understand that there's a gap and the course, and this is what we want to do to fill that gap.
Hmm. And how about the seventh core truth?
Seven core truth is that we are all connected to one unconditional energy, and that's the universe. And universe is one song. And I love that because that's when you break it down. And if you think of yourself as a note in a symphony, so we have an energetic signature, each one of us, everything is vibration. And where is your note resonating? Is it out of tune? Is it all, just out of tune? And so when we're fitting into the collective, where Are you flowing in that? Does it feel right? Is it joyful or is it not? And the fulfillment of coming in from the journey. So again, let's go back to choosing this journey. I'm going to choose to be Suzanne. I'm going to choose to be a nurse. I'm going to choose to have these opportunities to learn this. And again, there's no judgment if I choose not to, but these are what I'm choosing to fulfill what I want out of this life. So the fulfillment, I think, that we're all looking for happiness, right? We want to be happy. I don't think anyone will debate that. But happiness and fulfillment are two very different things. And I truly feel that fulfillment means fulfilling the obligation and the choices that I made to come learn. And the only way to do that is to access that being part and to live from my heart guidance and then fulfill my gift to share on the bigger part of being part of the whole of the universe while I'm here.
Beautiful. How do you see, so we talked a little bit about how forgiveness is connected to those. How do you see all these truths working together in complementary ways?
It's all about the following heart guidance. So I can either, and when you understand it, you start to say, oh, that's ego. Okay. When that's so subconscious, their subconscious mind is the ego mind, which, they have said runs the 95% of the time. That subconscious talk is the ego mind. And when I can understand that there's a heart guidance, that's my true self, what does that sound like? What does that feel like? And like when I started out talking to you today about, I heard the voice that said, go to hospice. And here's the thing, Stephen, and this is so important. There would be 10 plus reasons why that would have never been a solid thing to do, right? No end of life experience, taking less money. Like if I put it on paper and let my ego mind, my mental analytical mind make the choice, it would have been an absolute no. But because there was something that I felt that I had never felt before, and I knew there had to be more that I'm doing, I just didn't know what that looked like. I followed that. And so when you start to realize, when is the ego talking? What does that sound like? And when is it really my higher self guiding me, strengthening this muscle so that you can now be on your higher path of fulfillment and have that joy of being?
Makes total sense. Well, I know you want to also spend a little time with us, guidance and experience in a practice that helps us to orient to this deeper wisdom around dying. And so why don't we do that now?
Okay, I would love to. So I am a registered nurse by trade. So I want to bring in the human part of the nervous system. And it's very interesting because everything really is aligned with this human and the being part of us. So you have a sympathetic nervous system and you have a parasympathetic nervous system. It's almost like you can think of, you're living your life in first gear or fifth gear. And most of us today, and this is a very sad statement, but it's true, we're connected to everything at all times. We have all of this coming at us, fear-based, on the media, and just all of the stress that we have is that your body, for the most part, is surviving in fight or flight, which it's on high alert. And in that state, we have anxiety, not sleeping well, not eating well, and your body is just trying to survive the day. Parasympathetic is where we can access the being part of us. And we're going to slow down our breathing and we're going to do some work to get into that. It's where I can start to hear that higher guidance system. It's also where my body is able to restore and repair and connect to the collective higher conscious mind. And so we really have to understand that I am the only one. Stephen, you're the only one that can do that for you. And so we want to bring in simple practice like today, like we're going to do now, that you can repeat and that you can do daily to connect to that heart guidance and strengthen that muscle. So we're going to go ahead and start that. We're going to start with 3 deep breaths. This is going to start to slow down our energy and bring us into parasympathetic. And we're going to access the being part of who we are. And then I'm going to ask you to step out of you as the human and go a little bit beyond so that we can look at our lives through a different lens, just like people at the end of life, and get some wisdom and extract some peace and serenity and wisdom from that space. So we'll start with 3 deep breaths. You're going to breathe through your nose and hold for a few seconds like you're smelling a beautiful flower, and then out through your mouth. And so here we go. Breathe in and hold and let it go. Let go of all the chatter, anything and everything that is going through your mind. Just let it go. Breathe in and hold. Let it go. You can set the intention to let go of anything and everything that's no longer serving your highest consciousness. Breathe in and hold and let it go. If you feel called to, you can put your hand on your heart. And you should already feel a shift in your energetic nervous system. And now we're going to imagine that there is a beautiful light right above the top of your head, opening up the top of your head and bathing you in unconditional loving energy, the being energy, the wisdom, vitality, unconditional love, healing, and just going down your spine, going through your chakras. And I invite you, if you would like, with intention, to let go of anything and everything that's no longer serving your highest consciousness. This human experience is about choice. And if we do not live with intentional choice, it goes into default. And the default is survival. And so when we set the intention to release things that are no longer ours to carry, no longer serving us, and even things we've collectively picked up that are not ours to carry, it frees our energy. So bathing you and bathing your body and your cells in this unconditional love, going down your spine, through your root chakra to the center of the earth and swirling around because we are all connected. Coming back up through your root chakra, up through all of your chakras, through the top of your head to that high sun. And now as this light comes back down, it's going to expand about 6 feet from your physical body, encompassing all of your aura. And just let it bathe you here. And we're going to concentrate on our heart and our breath in this loving energy of no judgment, of unconditional love, of being fully connected to all. And now I'm going to invite you to take a step out. Let's take a step out of the human experience for a minute. Let's go into our higher being. Now, from this place of non-judgment, of unconditional love, let's take a look at our lives. What experiences, what stories do you need to let go of or change in the energetic attachment for you to be able to move into a higher place of consciousness? What have you been carrying around? What perspective do we need to shift? So meet the experience or what is coming up with curiosity, with an invitation to go deeper into what that experience, that person, that circumstance was trying to gift you. And I know that they don't all look like gifts. Maybe it's compassion. Maybe it's that you were always perfect no matter what. Maybe it's the power of forgiveness, because when we are able to forgive not only others, but ourselves, it frees us. And as we talked about today, forgiveness is the most transformational tool. And I'm going to share with you a tool about forgiveness. When we want to forgive something or release the energetic attachment to something through the power of forgiveness, it is very helpful to look at that circumstance, that person, and to say, whether it's you or someone else, look at it with empathy and compassion and say, were they or were you doing the best you could with where you were at that time? And maybe you were suffering from trauma. Maybe you had different challenges in your life that you were going through that were leading to choices that you wouldn't make today or they wouldn't make today. Can it release the anger to empathy? Can it allow us to say, yes, they or myself, I was doing the best I could at that time, and now I know and I can do better. Cutting that cord, releasing that attachment. So I invite you from the state of being, accessing this unconditional place of love. What does your heart and what do you need to know today in order to allow you to get to a higher level of conscious living so that you can fulfill your destiny? What does your heart want you to know? What do you need to let go of? What do you need to release in order for you to be able to move to that higher place of energetic resonance of the being part of who we are? And so when we're able to step out of the reactive human experience and go to that higher place, we're able to see it and respond to it, not react to it. And I always want to add in that giving gratitude and thanks for being able to be a part of this experience at this time. What an opportunity each one of us has to make a difference in humanity at this moment of incredible change, incredible shift. And it starts with each one of us individually doing our own healing and our own work. And when we do that, it heals the collective. So we always want to give that gratitude and thanks, and then humbly always ask how we can see, hear, and know how we can show up to be of the highest service, not only to ourselves, but to the universe. And breathe into that. And hold and let it go. And so it is. Yeah.
Yeah. They're very centered and open. Thank you for that. How do you recommend building on that little taste of an experience?
This is something that you should do several times a day. And I think one of the things that is the easiest is when we're waking up in the morning, there's that liminal space for all of us before we go into beta, right? We go into the human doing, that stop and pause, take a sacred pause a few times a day, but right in the beginning. And really, it's about, Stephen, if there's a very easy way, and I share this, and this was on my nature walk today, the minute we stop trying to get there, you will arrive. And so every day, and I want to share what that really means. It means surrendering to your higher consciousness, surrendering to your heart, not trying to figure it all out, right? Saying, how do I show up today? So starting your day with actually emptying out your agenda, just like we talked about for people at the end of life, for us too. So me saying that I know I'm here for a reason, and I just want to be able to connect with what that is without forcing it, but being from a place of love. So starting your day with that, and then taking several sacred pause moments, just like what we did today, during your day, so you can connect to the truth of who you are. And then that will strengthen that relationship and energetic muscle.
Hmm. What do you recommend doing with some of our kind of everyday fears in the context of what the dying need to teach us about the release of them?
One of the things that I think it was so healing for me and for many other people is that at the end of life, people had this clarity that it was all perfect,
Mm.
that everything was divinely orchestrated, and that the things that we hold so much and put so much weight on as human beings is absolutely nothing. It's like an illusion, right? That everything was always perfect. So when we can know that, again, the fear of death, the fear of, and this is very important for people to know, that the fear of death is prevalent globally right now. That for my end of life patients, it wasn't the fear of death for them as much as it was the fear that they didn't live. And this is incredibly important. And so many people, Viktor Frankl and many people will talk about that you cannot fully live your life until you befriend death and acknowledge that that will be part of the journey. And why? Because when I realize that one day my journey will change as I know it, it allows me to live each day like it's one little lifetime and not to miss it. And I really want to share that with everyone. Don't get to the end of this life and realize that you didn't live, which most people today are having that experience.
Mm. Yeah, really such key insight. Anything else that you're wanting to share? Just some practices that really help us keep that sort of groundedness and heart-centered awareness?
Yeah, I think that when you realize that we're all connected from a very large view here, we look at our world, and I don't ever want to get, negative when we're talking about it, but think about in terms of this collective ego mind, separate. I have to get it before them. There's one winner. And when we realize end of life patients say that we're all connected, would I ever wish anything but the best for you? Would I know to witness people with compassion and non-judgment and understanding? And also, what about the way we treat the animals and the planet? And so that conscious awareness, that shift, changes everything for how we're living. And so there's a very big moment of opportunity here, not just individually, but also collectively.
Mm. Is there anything else, that any sort of story or anecdote from somebody's dying process you would just want to share that really kind of brings all of these core teachings home today?
Yeah, I will. I mean, there's just so many from end of life patients. 72% of people at the end of life, 72% of people globally, their families reported that they talk about seeing loved ones who've already died back in the room with them. So here's again, we only had a certain amount of time today to be talking about this. But when you are serving people at the end of life and they are talking about their loved ones in the room with them, there's my mother, having conversations with them, it completely changes everything about grief, about death, about what is life about, and people being able to control the time that they die. I've had patients who will wait till you leave the room or wait for a birthday or something. There's a larger consciousness that's part of all of us, and there's a life force. And when we think about death and how there's so much grief and there's so much fear around it, if your being part is your life force, which I 100% believe that it is, you're given this beautiful vessel to have this experience in. Someday this vessel is not able to house your life force anymore, but your life force goes somewhere. So I see this over and over with patients, and it just changes absolutely everything. When the threshold is a place where they have one foot in this world and one in the next, if somebody was afraid before that, and I'm talking about children, all different levels of circumstance, their fear not only is removed, but they are so excited about where they are headed. And so that lets us believe that, okay, wait a minute, maybe this is the really challenging part. And what are we to learn to get it right?
Mm. Well, it circles right all the way back around to the excitement that you shared at the beginning of the hour, that being present for the dying process actually gives us excitement for the living process as well. So that is so profound. Well, Suzanne, I mean, it's really great, everything you've harvested from the wisdom of the dying process and people who are in the dying journey. And so now let's talk a little bit about your upcoming course, which is a remarkable way to put these insights into action. So we're very blessed that Suzanne has agreed to teach this brand new program for Shift. It's called Life-Changing Insights from the Dying Experience: How End-of-Life Wisdom Can Transform How You Live and Love Today. So this is going to be applicable both to those who are accompanying somebody in the dying process or are engaged in your own, or just great wisdom for everyday life as well. So it's about taking those universal truths and applying them in a way that is aligned with the most important insights that we have from that precipice of death. So again, it's called, so you can find it at the URL insightsfromthedying.com, insightsfromthedying.com. And Suzanne, I'd love for you to share in your own words some of the intentions that you hold for what people will come away from the course with.
Yeah. So one of the things that I really want to share, and this is so important, is that you have this precious journey that's called life. Don't waste it. Don't get to the end of it and realize that you haven't lived, with most of my patients say. And so when we pretend that death is optional, when we pretend that we have time, one of the things that is most common is people at the end of life said, Suzanne, I thought I had more time. We don't get to life. We don't open ourselves up to stepping outside of the human part and getting into the being part where all the magic is. And so when we learn this from end of life patients, and we learn that there is a higher purpose, everything, but that we have to step out of our comfort zone. And by knowing that one day the journey will change and that there's a bigger design for it, allows us to have the courage to actually do that. So living that, and I've seen, people who have studied this and with the Death Doula and Doula Givers course, their lives have changed. Their health has changed. Their relationships have changed. Their careers have changed because they've stepped into the being part and their higher guidance. And that's what I would hope for everybody.
That's great. Module 1 is called Realize There's No Death to Release Fear and Live with Greater Presence Now.
Yeah. So, I mean, that's really, again, the important thing is to realize that there is no death. And so when that is, then what is life about? And it's not saying that this is a completely easy journey, but why am I here? So what is my role? What is your gift that you're supposed to share? We all know that we're here for a reason. There's no accidents. And I know we feel it, but maybe we don't know how to find that. And again, the other thing is that I think everyone has been taught to look outside of themselves for the answers, for happiness, for completion. It's not out there. End of life patients will share that. I've had people who have been so successful and on paper look like they had absolutely everything. And what they say, Suzanne, I missed it, that I didn't, what was important, I didn't capitalize on. My relationships, that I had so much money, but I wasn't happy. And so is it inside that we need to reconnect with the being part? Is the whole point of the journey forgetting that we're a spiritual being and finding our way back to reconnecting with that? And I believe that it is. And so learning about that there's no death and that that's the pathway allows us at least the opportunity to start on that path.
Module 2, recognize our interconnected nature to deepen compassion and transform your relationships.
Yeah. So when we know that we're all connected, again, we're looking at a world that's so divided and so full of chaos. And so one of the things is, if we can, it's not that you are here to change anyone's journey, or to direct it, but when you can meet people with compassionate presence and witnessing. And, we talk a lot about different laws and different presidents. And yes, that's a great thing in one sense, but we all have an opportunity every single day on how we choose to show up. It's either choosing to show up in fear and separateness or choosing to show up in love. And when we realize we're all connected and that I have the power of what frequency I'm going to hold every day, that's what we need to change the world. And that awareness allows us to do that.
Module 3, accept there is no judgment to soften inner criticism and live more freely.
Yeah. So at the end of life, the judgment that people have had on themselves, that they wish that they hadn't made choices that they have really kept them blocked and stuck, and also judgment on other people. And so when we realize that we're not being judged from the higher levels of the bigger picture, whether it's God or source or whatever your belief system is, that everything was an opportunity for learning, it softens that we can forgive and we can release our judgment of ourselves. But we want to do that before we get at the end of life. We want to do that now so we can have that higher energetic body today. And it's also applies to not only myself, but not judging others that we meet, because everyone has a story that we know nothing about.
Module 4, practice forgiveness to shift pain into peace.
So forgiveness is the tool. It's the tool at end of life, and it's the tool in life. And if we can think, most people don't fully understand what forgiveness is or isn't. It's not condoning, it's not excusing. It's releasing an energetic attachment to something that's not serving you. And so if I'm angry, and everything is vibrational, so your signature of what you put out in a vibration is going to be matched. That's the law of vibration. And so when I am holding resentment or guilt or anger, that's the frequency I'm putting out. And here's how it works. The universal law is that it's not what I get. I don't get what I want. I get what I am. And so if I'm putting out anger, I'm going to get back that type of energy. And so forgiveness is the tool to release the energetic attachments to anything that's no longer serving you. It is the most powerful tool that we have. And I can't say enough about that.
Module 5, recognize everything is for learning to find meaning in life's hardest moments.
Yeah, turning pain to purpose. And I know that in my life, there were two particular things that were incredibly painful, and it did not become purpose overnight. It took me years to, understand those experiences. But today, when I look at them, they are my greatest spiritual teachers. And so when we can come from a higher perspective, stepping out of it and saying, what was that trying to teach me? And by the way, we're getting feedback and signs all the time that I'm on my path and that I'm not on my path. And the signs that happen that are blocking us, or the things that are stopping us, like illnesses and losses of jobs, or just things that are causing us pain, could they be, and I'm going to say yes, could they be signs that are saying you're on the wrong way? Come on this way. And so when we look at them as the gifts that they are providing us for purpose, for growth, it changes the perspective and the energy that we have to them.
Module 6, shift from human doing to human being to regulate your nervous system and find inner calm.
If you want to change your life overnight, change your perspective. And I mean that. It is as quick as that. And when I started working with people at the end of life, and realizing that end of life is going to be 100% part of the journey, it can happen at any time, immediately the level of gratitude and appreciation I had every single day for everything changed. It was no longer, oh, I have to go to the gym. It's, I get to go to the gym. And that raised my frequency, and my whole life started to change. So again, when you realize that and you want to change your perspective, you can change it overnight.
And finally, module 7, feel your connection to the universe to live with greater intention, purpose, and fulfillment.
When we live in default, and I'm going to say the default is the ego mind, the default is the human. First of all, we create our suffering. And yes, it is really hard out there. When we understand that there's a being part of us, and that you are here for a reason, that you play a role, that each and every person is important and has a purpose. And I will break it right down to the purpose is holding the frequency of love, not just for yourself, but for the universe. When we can tap into that and we can align with that, then we can leave this world at the end knowing that we left it a better place because we were in it and we were supposed to.
Well, what a beautiful offering. And I think it's such a unique perspective to sort of just harvest all of the unifying wisdom from the end of life and apply it to better living now. And so what a great offering this is, Suzanne. I know that each module has many different practices and insights that you're going to be deepening and building upon. So the whole course is laid out in more detail at insightsfromthedying.com, insightsfromthedying.com. If you choose to move forward, you're going to get not only those 7 90-minute live sessions with Suzanne, which is a great time to do practices together, as well as engage in questions. There's recordings of every session, both video and audio, as well as word-for-word transcripts to work with, study, and highlight. There's weekly practices for home. There's a community group to support you and deepen your experience, as well as small group time to connect with other participants. And on the page, you'll see Suzanne's also been very generous with extra bonuses. There's a full 3 months in Universal Life Mastery coaching and healing sessions. You want to share more about that?
I do. So it's strengthening that muscle. It's really about understanding what that being part of me feels like and what it sounds like, and knowing when it's guiding me so I can trust in that. And that's what that practice is. It's getting together. And when we collectively get together, with a group intention, it's even stronger. So we meet and we do regular meditations, not just for each other, but also we hold the world in unconditional love and healing as well. It's really beautiful.
The next bonus is there's a video from Suzanne called A Legacy of Understanding Love, Death, and Grief with Ken Ross. I'll share more about that video.
Yeah, so Ken Ross is the president of Dr. Elizabeth Kubler-Ross Foundation, and that's her son. She is what I call the original death doula, and she talks a lot about this space as well. She's known for her grief work, but she is talking the same thing that we're talking about, the wisdom that opens up to all of us who are privileged enough to work with those at the end of life is everything about how we navigate this life, how we handle the loss of our loved ones who leave this world. Yes, it's going to hurt, but there's a different perspective. And so I have this beautiful conversation with Ken about his mother's journey, her work, and our hopes for the future.
Sounds fantastic. And then there's one final bonus, which is actually more like four bonuses in one. This is a full forgiveness workshop. It's a four-module video workshop, including PDFs that Suzanne has created. So we want to share more about that's the special bonus folks get when they sign up by midnight tonight Pacific time. So again, that's a forgiveness workshop. And Suzanne, you want to share more about that?
I do. And I think, you all probably understand how I feel about forgiveness because it is the tool. This training, this workshop that I put together has forgiveness, what I call forgiveness heroes in it. And there are some examples from people who have gone through things that they will talk about the power of forgiveness setting them free that you think is not even possible. So if they can utilize this and it sets them free, what can it do for the rest of us? And I also just want to share with your listeners that people who have taken my Doula Givers course, this is a bonus that they get. They said that this course is so good, the forgiveness workshop, it was worth the entire price of the whole course. So I want people to have access to this.
What a beautiful extra reason to sign up right away. The forgiveness workshop, that's four-module video workshop with PDFs. And so yeah, we've kept this is an amazing program. We've kept the investment very accessible for it. It's just three payments of $128. So you save 10% when you pay in full with one payment of $349. The course is going to start June 9th and run Tuesdays at 1 Pacific, 4 Eastern. But even if you can't make the live times, you can still get the full value with recordings, the transcripts, and the community as well. Some beautiful testimonials on the page about Suzanne and her work, and you are in truly great hands, and you, I think, are going to be very blessed if you choose to move forward because this is really life-changing wisdom. So again, it's all at insightsfromthedying.com, insightsfromthedying.com, and you will get that special four-part bonus workshop of the forgiveness workshop when you sign up by midnight tonight. So, Suzanne, it's been really wonderful to be with you. Thank you for your time and wisdom and anything that's still on your heart you want to share with folks who are considering doing the full course.
Yeah, well, thank you very much for this. I want to just say that this has completely changed not only my life, but so many others. And when we think about the journey of being a human being, and when I think about the core truths from those at the end of life, filling in that gap, it will heal you. It'll bring you knowledge and perspective about why things happen, and it will help you to access your guidance to your highest path. So this fills in the gap, and there's no judgment, but if you would like to, it will change everything. So we hope you join.
Sounds fantastic. Well, thank you, Suzanne. Thank you all for joining. And again, if you'd like to go further into this beautiful work, you can do so at insightsfromthedying.com. And the course is called Life-Changing Insights from the Dying Experience, How End-of-Life Wisdom Can Transform How You Live and Love Today. So thank you so much. Many blessings.
Thank you so much.